Hi, I'm Trevor Ault. Thanks for streaming with us. We begin with the Supreme Court stepping up security after the leak of that draft opinion showing it could overturn Roe v. Wade. Crews have now put up new fencing around the court. That happened last night as the political debate is continuing to intensify over abortion in America. President Biden is blasting the draft opinion, warning if it stands, other American rights could also be at risk. And now the court's top security official is launching an investigation into who leaked that draft opinion. Senior national correspondent Terry Moran starts us off.
President Biden, echoing legal scholars on the left, is warning that the leaked Supreme Court draft opinion that would overturn Roe versus Wade could be just the beginning of the rollback of rights.
What happens if you have a state changes the law saying that children who are LGBTQ can't be in classrooms with other children? Is that legit under the way the decision is written?
Biden says that the followers of former President Donald Trump will push Republicans to go further, using some of the toughest political language of his presidency.
This MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political organization that's existed in American history, in recent American history.
On Capitol Hill, Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, one of two Republican senators who support abortion rights, now says she's open to seeing changes that Democrats might make to a bill that would protect abortion rights at the federal level. Senate Democrats plan to hold a vote next week on that legislation, but that bill is a long shot, unlikely to gain enough Republican votes to pass. All this as the investigation into the leak gets underway. Who did it and why? Chief Justice John Roberts has directed the Marshal of the Court, Army Colonel Gail Curley, to lead the probe. Colonel Curley is a senior attorney for the United States Army. She served in that capacity in Afghanistan and in Germany. And here at the court, she supervises staff about 200, including the Supreme Court police. But complex investigations have not been a core part of her responsibility. She doesn't have a lot of experience in that area. This is a tough one. She does have the opportunity to call in the FBI if Chief Justice John Roberts requests that. He hasn't done that so far, and so she will pursue internally this investigation. Most people might know if they've ever been to the Supreme Court, she's the person who opens up every session with that famous cry, "Oyez, oyez, oyez," and bangs the gavel. This is a much harder job, obviously. Trevor?
Terry Moran from the Supreme Court. Terry, thank you. And next to the war in Ukraine, Russian forces are stepping up their attacks on critical infrastructure throughout the country. These images circulating online show a strike on a railway bridge in the city of Dnipro in the east. Meanwhile, Russian forces have breached the final stronghold in the besieged city of Mariupol, a steel plant where hundreds of civilians are taking shelter. And this comes as a New York Times report gives details from a classified Biden administration effort to provide real-time battlefield intelligence to Ukraine, including anticipated Russian troop movements, Russia's secret battle plan for Donbass, and locations for Russian mobile headquarters. According to the Times, Ukrainian military officials are using that information and other intelligence to launch targeted strikes that have killed multiple senior Russian officers. But American officials stressed to ABC News the U.S. is not providing intelligence on Russian generals specifically. So let's bring in ABC's Marcus Moore now. He joins us live from Ukraine with more. Marcus, what can you tell us about how these Ukrainian forces are actually using this U.S. intelligence against Russia?
Well, Trevor, the assistance that the Ukrainian forces are getting from U.S. intelligence is critical, and they have been using that information not only to protect and defend their positions here in Ukraine, but also carry out counterattacks when they can. And as you mentioned, the information that they've been receiving from U.S. intelligence is broad in its nature in terms of identifying where some of those mobile command posts are, as well as the various troop movements on the part of the Russians. But as you say, it is important to point out that the information that they've been receiving is not specific to, say, a specific general for the Russians, who, by the way, generally, the way the Russian military is set up, they often have their higher-ranking officials closer to the front line, and because of that, they are much closer to the action and can be injured or killed as the Ukrainians carry out those counterattacks. So certainly this information helps shed some light on how this war has been fought and how the Ukrainians have been defending themselves, but also just how critical the support is that they are getting from the West and from the U.S., not only military weapons and equipment, but also that very critical intelligence information.
Marcus, we've seen a lot of reporting throughout this war of Ukrainians seeking shelter wherever they can, sometimes going underground, not seeing the sun for days, weeks at a time. Officials say more than 300 civilians have now been evacuated from Mariupol in the last few days, but there are hundreds more that are still trapped in that steel plant that has been seeing some really heavy fighting. What's the latest on the situation there and the safety of these civilians?
Trevor, yeah, this is all happening in the coastal city of Mariupol, which is right along Ukraine's southeastern side and has been the focus of intense fighting now for weeks. And we understand that there are still civilians who have been taking shelter in the underground tunnels and bunkers that are underneath the Azovstal steel plant. And what's significant about this plant, aside from the civilians who are there, it is also known as the last holdout for Ukrainian fighters in that city. So it is a critical point, and it marks a critical point for the Ukrainians in the midst of this war as it unfolds. And there have been very urgent and dangerous efforts to try to evacuate the civilians who have taken shelter there. And as you know, the UN, and along with Ukraine and Russia, were able to negotiate earlier this week a ceasefire, a moment for them to evacuate people from that plant. But that ceasefire then ended a short time later, and the heavy fighting has continued. So, Trevor, the Russians, they want to take this plant. They want to be able to claim victory in Mariupol. The Ukrainians say that they are still fighting and that they will not surrender unless there is a guarantee that those soldiers will be able, the soldiers and civilians will be able to exit that plant safely. But the headline there still remains that they have not given up the fight there in Mariupol.
All right, Marcus Moore reporting from Ukraine. Always appreciate your reporting and your context. Coming up, we have new dramatic testimony from Amber Heard in the legal battle between her and her ex-husband, Johnny Depp. Stay with us. Welcome back. Today, Amber Heard is back on the stand after breaking down while testifying yesterday in the Johnny Depp defamation trial. The actress testified her relationship with Depp turned from a Hollywood romance into violence and abuse. Now this trial is in its fourth week. It has become one of the most salacious lawsuits between Hollywood stars in recent memory.
Do you remember the first time that he physically hit you?
Yes.
Please tell the jury about it.
Now it's her turn.
I do.
Amber Heard taking the witness stand in a Fairfax, Virginia courtroom. Outside, the long line of people hoping to be one of 100 allowed in to hear her testify as part of her highly anticipated legal defense in the $50 million defamation lawsuit brought against her by her ex-husband, Johnny Depp.
I fell head over heels in love with this man.
Heard recounts how they fell in love during the press tour for their 2011 movie, The Rum Diary, saying he made her feel like $1 million.
That kind of feeling where, you know, he's just lavish gifts and lavish expressions of love, and how he had never met a woman like me. I mean, I remember he took the foil off of this bottle and put it on my ring finger, and I had only been with him like days.
But then, she says, things began to change. That Depp became jealous of her acting roles and criticized how she dressed.
I found myself trying to not talk about auditions because it would change the mood so dramatically. I tried to, you know, he would make these comments about, you know, whoring myself out, but do so in the context of me acting.
She added that jealousy then turned to violence.
And he just threw this glass across the kitchen, and it didn't hit me, but it shattered behind me, and I remember thinking that it like very easily could have hit me.
Then emotionally retelling the alleged first time that Depp hit her.
Oh, never forget it. You know, he's drinking and we're talking, and there's music playing, and he's smoking cigarettes, and we're sitting next to each other on the couch. And I asked him about the tattoo he has on his arm. He said it says wino, and I laughed. It was that simple. I just laughed because I thought he was joking. And slapped me across the face. And I laughed. I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. I thought, this must be a joke. Second slap, I know he's not kidding, but I don't know what else to say or do, so I just stared at him. And he slaps me one more time. Hard. I lose my balance, and I'm all of a sudden realizing that the worst thing has just happened to me. And I knew that I had to leave him. And that's what broke my heart, because I didn't want to leave him. Before I know it, he starts crying. I thought I put the monster away, and I've done it before. It's done.
After yesterday's failed attempt to throw out the lawsuit, Heard's team presented what they claim was a pattern of abuse and jealousy. A clinical and forensic psychologist who examined Heard testified she was suffering from PTSD caused by intimate partner violence.
There was a number of incidents of sexual violence reported in this relationship. Those are documented early on in Dr. Bonnie Jacobs' notes, where when Mr. Depp was drunk or high, he threw her on the bed, ripped off her nightgown, and tried to have sex with her.
This morning, I don't think so.
The trial has been highlighted by days of salacious testimony, an airing of the former couple's dirty laundry, including claims of mental illness and drug use on both sides.
You didn't get punched. You got hit. I'm sorry I hit you like this, but I did not punch you. You are such a baby. Grow the up, Johnny.
Depp's legal team used audio records to paint Heard as the alleged aggressor, who they say instigated arguments that sometimes became physical. In Depp's 4 days of testimony, the 58-year-old said in 2015, Heard extinguished a cigarette on his face and partially severed his finger, throwing a vodka bottle at him while the two were in Australia.
So we went to the emergency room. The doctor asked me what happened. And I lied to him. I said that I had smashed it.
Why would you lie about that?
I didn't want to get her in trouble.
Depp denies ever hitting Heard. His libel lawsuit stems from a 2018 op-ed published by Heard in the Washington Post. The 35-year-old describes herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse without naming Depp. But Depp's legal team argues the implications are clear and that it cost him movie roles. Heard's defense argues she's within her First Amendment rights.
Ms. Heard spoke about a cavity search where Johnny Depp was looking for drugs frantically while they were at a weekend with friends. And she speaks about it as if it was incredibly detailed. She also speaks about it in a way where she wasn't surprised yet was surprised, and then goes about living her life as if it was normal. And you can feel her loneliness at that point. It feels palpable.
But the question now is, can Heard's dramatic testimony sway public opinion and the jury in her favor?
I feel like she's credible, and that is what the jury should be looking for. Johnny Depp is a mega superstar with giant fans and a huge public base. So I don't know if truly she's ever going to turn the tide of the public. She felt like she survived domestic violence. I think that's been established in this case through witnesses prior to her testimony. But yes, she needs to show that she was being truthful in that article, and she wins the case.
So let's bring in now ABC News legal contributor and Law and Crime Network host Brian Buckmeyer for more on this. Brian, appreciate you being here. Always good to talk to you here. Amber Heard back on the stand today. A lot of people have been waiting a long time to get her side of this after we saw a lot of emotional testimony from Johnny Depp. What are your early takeaways from her testimony so far?
First, the allegations that she's put forward are horrendous in any way, shape, or form. The allegations of a cavity search, the pushing, the slapping, the punching. And so I think if you take it at face value, she's correct. She should win this argument. She is a victim of domestic abuse. But the cross-examination hasn't come up as yet. And we've already heard Johnny Depp's side. And if they have the ability to poke holes in her story, they've already kind of damaged her reputation in some way, shape, or form. A lot of people watching this don't believe her to be true. I think the evaluation of this case is going to come up in her testimony after cross-examination.
There's so much made about the court of public opinion and something like this. I mean, how could it not be? It's obviously an enormous spectacle. Before we get to that, let's talk about just actual court, though, because this isn't, despite the conversation, it's not a contest to see who was the worst spouse. It's, did Johnny Depp abuse Amber Heard at any time, correct?
Yes and no. It's a little bit different than that with defamation. And so with defamation, they have to show that these allegations are false. And so it gets a little bit even more difficult when you're a public figure because you have to show actual malice. And so what Amber Heard's attorneys have to do is properly orientate the question of what we're supposed to be asking, because right now, we're all about 85% right in terms of what this case is about. Is it who's the aggressor, who's the victim, who's doing what and whatnot. But Johnny Depp has to show that her allegations are false and that she had actual malice. But I think what's going on here is Depp's attorneys are being very wise in the way they're presenting this case of this was chaos, this was confusion, who's in the right, who's the actual victim. And those questions, I think, are going to cause this jury to struggle with what they're supposed to decide unless Amber Heard's attorneys can really orientate, this is the standard, this is what we have to think about.
Then we see Amber Heard, this is her live on the stand right now. I mean, is it possible that Johnny Depp's attorneys simply just wanted to get this out in the open to get his side heard by the public, thinking that, knowing really that it was an uphill climb to ever win this lawsuit?
I mean, just think about the concept of having to prove someone else's statement is false when it's a he said, she said, because a lot of domestic violence happens in these closed quarters. For Johnny Depp, he didn't really get an opportunity to put his side of the story out in the UK libel case. And so from what we've been hearing, no, the lawyers say he wants this trial, he wants to end it, but he's got a story out there. In the court of public opinion, as you already brought up, it seems like he's winning. And we know that next week the court is off. And so, unpopular theory, but I'm going to throw it out there. As a public defender, in the middle of a trial, I'm always negotiating. Hey, this doesn't look like it's going too well for you. Maybe we should get a lower plea offer, prosecutor, because my case looks really well. There's a whole week for Amber Heard and Johnny Depp's attorneys to talk this out. And maybe they say, hey, we both got our story out there. Maybe you don't want your client to be cross-examined by me after this break. I don't think it's going to happen, but there's definitely going to be that conversation. It's going to be interesting to see if it comes back.
Based on Amber Heard's testimony so far, how do you think she would hold up against cross-examination?
I think it'd be very difficult for her. Yeah. I think both in the way that she's prepped. When you look at a witness and there's so many objections to hearsay, there's so many objections as to how she's putting out this information and she's getting blocked left, right, and center, that shows me one of two things. Either the lawyer did not do a very good job of prepping her to kind of instruct her how to tell her story, or she's forgetful of that preparation. And if upon cross-examination, either of those two things happen, a very skilled lawyer can dismantle a witness. And I would be fearful if I was Amber Heard's attorneys right now as to how bad that cross-examination could be.
Well, this certainly has a ton of eyes on this all over the world. Brian, we appreciate your context breaking that down for us. Thanks so much for being here. Coming up, we have new video from the onstage attack against comedian Dave Chappelle. We'll tell you what we're learning about the suspect when we come back. Welcome back to ABC News Live. 8 reported tornadoes touched down overnight in Oklahoma and Texas. In Seminole, Texas, and many other parts of those states, they're reporting significant damage. And now that severe weather is heading towards several major cities, including Dallas, Shreveport, and Memphis as well. For the first time in months, COVID-related hospitalizations and deaths in the U.S. are projected to increase in the coming weeks. The CDC now projects there's going to be as many as 9,600 more deaths by the end of this month as the nation approaches the somber milestone of 1 million Americans killed by COVID-19. Meanwhile, the FDA is reviewing Moderna's request for authorization for its vaccine for children under 5. And Pope Francis used a wheelchair in public for the first time today since a flare-up of pain in his knee limited his ability to walk. The 85-year-old Pope has had to cancel several activities over the past month. The company behind the popular income tax service TurboTax has agreed to pay customers $141 million. That company, Intuit, was accused of luring in customers with deceiving promises of free tax preparation. Well, in a statement, Intuit says it, quote, admitted no wrongdoing as part of the settlement. People who used TurboTax's free edition from 2016 to 2018 will now automatically get checks sent to them for $30 for each year that they were wrongfully charged. Well, the search is intensifying for an Alabama murder suspect and the corrections officer accused of helping him escape from prison. Investigators are revealing more information about what they call a special relationship between the two. Our Eva Pilgrim has more from Florence, Alabama.
This morning, new details about the relationship between a jailhouse supervisor and a capital murder suspect, the couple now on the run for 6 days.
A relationship did exist. To what extent and how long that relationship has gone on, I don't know that, but definitely they are working together.
Investigators discovering the two had a special relationship that started when he was an inmate at the facility in 2020. Authorities now looking through the two's communications. A nearly week-long nationwide manhunt for the pair. Friday, Vicky White seen on this security video walking Casey White out of the facility and putting him in the backseat of her patrol car before driving away. Authorities say this gas station surveillance video shows the pair in the patrol car 8 minutes after leaving jail en route to their getaway car, this newly purchased 2007 Ford Edge.
Are you worried about what happens when police finally find them?
We are concerned. He is a violent criminal. He does have weapons. And so we're absolutely concerned for the safety of law enforcement, for the public.
The veteran officer recently selling her home and 4+ acres of land for just over $95,000 at auction, well below value. Overnight, a fellow corrections officer in the community, Sherry Brown, telling ABC News that she is shocked by the events, but believes Vicky was a good person under enormous pressure.
For us women, you know, it's really hard for us correction officers to keep these people in control and in line.
The sheriff announcing that Vicky White is no longer employed by his office. Her retirement paperwork was not completed before she disappeared. Trevor?
Thank you, Eva Pilgrim, for us in Alabama. And also this morning, we're learning more about the attack on Dave Chappelle. He was attacked as he was performing at the Hollywood Bowl. New video shows that attacker climbing up on stage before tackling the comedian. Kaylee Hartung has the latest.
23-year-old Isaiah Lee, identified as the man seen here, tackling comedian Dave Chappelle in the middle of his Tuesday night set at the Hollywood Bowl.
Suspect was armed with a gun and a knife, standby for additional.
Lee taken into custody and held for a felony assault with a deadly weapon. The LAPD confirming this to be his replica handgun containing a knife blade.
Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for hip-hop history.
Video obtained by TMZ capturing the moment the suspect climbed on stage.
It was surreal. For a moment, we didn't know if this was part of the show, if something was happening that was planned. We weren't sure if it was real. But
ABC News producer Stephanie Wash was attending the Netflix's A Joke Festival with Chappelle headlining. Security running on stage.
I am going to kill that.
Chasing the suspect behind the big screen.
He's back there getting stomped.
Chris Rock, who also performed, joining Chappelle on stage moments later.
Was that Will Smith?
Several celebrities, including Elon Musk and Jamie Foxx, who's seen in this TMZ video witnessing the chaos.
This man is an absolute genius. We got to make sure we protect him at all times, man.
With security checks at the gates of the venue, it remains unclear how Lee was able to sneak the weapon inside.
I had to open up my purse. They looked into my purse to see what was in there. There were people bringing in food and drinks and coolers, it seemed. So those things were being checked as well. But security seemed normal.
Chappelle's rep releasing a statement saying, as unfortunate and unsettling as the incident was, Chappelle went on with the show.
Thanks to Kaylee Hartung. I'm Trevor Alt.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.